I'm Judy Stiles. Thank you for joining us this week on Newsmakers. Well, the November 2018 elections will bring a lot of changes in the state of Missouri as people reach term limits. And today we're visiting with Ron RIchard, our local state senator. Thank you for being here today.
Judy, it's nice to be back.
And I think to start off today, I'd like to show the audience a little bit of video that you recorded recently in Jefferson City talking about the fact that your terms are ending. So
okay.
Let's take a look at that.
I've been luckier than most being elected to leadership. 12 out of 16 years, even though I chaired economic development for some time. I've been very lucky. Caucus in the House and Senate has been behind me most of the time. Well, all the time. I've never lost a vote, never lost an issue. And the term limits are here for a reason. It's time for new blood and new ideas, and the new General Assembly, the new Senate will do just fine.
Well, as you can see on that video, things have to end, and this is the time when your career in Jefferson City is ending on the legislative side.
Yeah, you know, there's a beginning and an end, and term limits required that, so I'm fine with it.
Looking back at 2002, when you first went to Jefferson City, and now 2018, how would you compare things then and now, kind of in general terms, in the state legislature and the law?
Well, in 2002, I was sworn in 2003. I really didn't know the process, didn't know the rules, and didn't know how to begin, and it took a while to figure that, and over time I did. And then, you know, going fast forward to today, I mean, I'm pretty good at the rules, the process, and how to get things done. So I mean, it's a learning experience,
right.
But the ones that succeed in leadership learn it quicker and are better at it than most, and I've been pretty fortunate. I've always been pretty good about the rules and getting people to agree with some of my concepts and ideas, and always had a pretty good following.
And you really put yourself on the map with recognition, leadership in the House and the Senate side, and in a way put Joplin on the map, you know, as far as the first person to be in the role of leadership in both of those.
Well, I don't know about that, but I mean, Dick Webster, the building we're in, was the first Speaker of the House from Southwest Missouri, and I was the second. So we've had a lot of good elected officials. I'm not sure I'm the one that is a hallmark to brag on. I mean, we had a lot of good ones.
Well, working with the role of leadership, a lot of people serve many years, perhaps there's other people who've served 16 years in both the House and the Senate. What sparked your interest in the leadership, saying, you know, I want to go and be a leader in the House, and then we'll go on to, I want to lead in the Senate? Well,
sometimes it just happens when people choose you to be a committee chairman, and if you get lucky and excel at that, and I've always been very interested in creating jobs, and especially in Southwest Missouri, and I started that when I was mayor of Joplin. And I just progressed all the way through, and that's a common theme in every community, in every part of the state, every county, that everybody wants to create jobs and make their place a good place to live and retire, and create more growth, and they have a better economy. So I was always good at that, and that's what led me to be a chairman of economic development in the House, and from there a speaker. The doors always swung open, and I was pretty lucky. I was lucky enough to notice that and walk through them, and had a lot of support.
Great. And working with people on both sides, as far as we hear so much today about partisan politics, I know you've made statements of, but you have to be willing to work with people.
Well, I always did until, you know, I work with them until you can't work them anymore. And then being in charge of a supermajority, you can do what you want to do anyway. But it's always nice to get everybody going the same direction. Dick Webster said something one time, that not all the good members are on our side of the aisle, and not all the bad ones are on their side. So you pick your battles, and in this House, you need 82 to pass the journal, which tells you what you did yesterday. In the Senate, you need 18, so you need to be aware of votes. They need to be aware of controversies within people on this particular issues, and see if you can bring those to some fruition.
To reach that final conclusion for many things, right? You've mentioned Richard, the Webster family, Webster, as far as his influence, House and Senate. Did he help serve as a mentor in any way, or did you follow his, you know, his advice? Did you look to what he had
was
said?
Gone before I got to Jeff City. He passed away. I did visit with him when he was a senator and I was a mayor of Joplin from time to time, but we never really talked too much about politics. I learned most of mine from some of the state reps I served with. I followed Chuck Surface, Gary Burton, Mark Elliott, who's on the Board of Governors now. I learned most from them, Roy Cagle. But Webster, occasionally, but not too often.
Right. Well, you mentioned some of the previous people serving as state representatives, and there was a time when we really had a strong, well, I guess maybe we still do now, but the Joplin contingent of people from this region. The names you mentioned, people recognize them, and they're continuing to contribute to the community.
Yeah, we still have a good group, but, those are the old guys I started with, and they were there that you stood on their shoulders because they served 20 years in the minority until we got the majority in 2002, which was the first majority in the House for 50 years. Same in the Senate. So, I'm very fortunate. Timing was very good to me, and I could just as easily have served in that minority. But if I'd been elected earlier, which I did run for office earlier, I'm glad I lost because I would have never served, been able to move to the places that I did through in leadership.
Well, let's step back for our viewers. I know that, of course, it all started here in Joplin, and we're at Missouri Southern State University. You started your higher education career here at Missouri Southern, and in that area of interest in history and, I guess, political science early on.
Yeah, I thought I was going to be an attorney. I came out here in 1969. I came out here in 1965, graduated in 69, and I was elected president of the first junior class out here. I've always been involved in politics for some reason. It just seemed to interest me, and I've always been pretty good at it, apparently. And then from there, I went to Missouri State and got a master's. I thought I was going to go to law school, and that's kind of what you needed to do to get in law school. It was during the Vietnam War, and you needed a graduate degree to get in because many people were keeping their men and women were keeping their student deferment,
right? So
they were staying in graduate school. But I didn't. I chose not to do that. Went back to my family business with my dad and mother, and then from there, in the middle '80s, it was the early '80s that I started at City Hall for some appointments and worked up to city mayor.
We mentioned the family business, and people know that you spent many years with the family business, and it wasn't just working in Joplin. When you look at your resume, you were involved with business organizations, national, local.
Yeah, I was on a couple of national boards with our industry, and we had a number of facilities in a couple of different states, and my brothers and I did that together, and then we sold off some. So, again, I've just been very lucky, and opportunities were made themselves available to me.
How did that role as a business owner then help you when you went to Jefferson City and you're dealing with taxes and economic development and people wanting to have jobs?
Well, if you signed a payroll check and you know what it takes to get there and to pay the taxes, it gives you some perspective on the bureaucracy in government, the rulemaking that gets in your way, just the total morass of anti-business feeling in state and sometimes local and federal government. So we like to think that we got rid of a lot of regulations and let businesses hire and do what they do, and I think that's paid well for Joplin. I hope so. I've tried.
Well, we've seen a lot of growth in Joplin over those years, and going back to your term as mayor, even back then, I recall, talking about we need to bring businesses to town or help the businesses we have.
I've stayed pretty consistent for my time at City Hall as well as in the House and Senate, and that's been my theme throughout. Make the pie bigger. If you can give enough people jobs and give a good pay, they're going to be charitable, they're going to help the community and volunteer, and they're going to maybe run for office or get into different organizations. So I always kept that thought that if you can make people's life better, then it works for everyone.
And when you look at city government, local government, a lot of people, that's the one that affects people directly and they may not realize it. It's the city streets, the city services that are provided. When you were mayor, did you get that feeling from people as you went around town that, this is Joplin, and Joplin residents would come up and talk to you and visit with you?
In our business, we did business, a number of people came through every year. But, I was always very accessible, so people... And I like to think that I was accessible. And people always had a chance to come up and talk to me. A lot of them did, and always had local office. Gwen Delano's been with me for years and years. So we made sure that we're available, and you know, sometimes these ideas or some concerns are based on fact, and we like to think some of the results around the city, around the state, are based on people talking to us.
Good. Well, one more thing about the city, working with the city. You were on city council in 1990, you were elected to council?
1990, yes.
Right. And then mayor a few years later.
I was elected mayor pro tem a couple of years after that. Then after that I was mayor for 3 years. Then I resigned early to run for state senate.
Right.
I'm the only guy that ever thought, apparently, that you can't serve two masters. I didn't think it was proper to be mayor of Joplin, use that as a stepping stone to run for state senate, trying to serve two constituencies. So I resigned, ran for Senate against Marvin Singleton. And I lost, and then 2 years later I ran and won, and the rest is history.
So then they went to the House and became a member of the House and so forth. So as far as the sort of moving up the ladder as far as a career, then you felt that it was important to take that pause. I'm not going to go straight from Joplin to a state position.
Well, I didn't really care about taking that pause, but when I lost that election, there was a pause because the next election was 2 years away. And then Chuck Surface was getting to the point that term limits were ending for him. So it was a natural process just to run for his office, and I didn't have any opposition, I remember, and I ran a number of times, 4 elections to the House and 2 in the Senate, and didn't have any opposition.
Well, you mentioned no opposition. Of course, Joplin, this area is a very strong Republican region, and so when you oftentimes have House races, Senate races in the past, sometimes there have not been much as far as opposition on the other party.
Well, I mean, we've had some close elections nationally when Obama was elected, and you know, if you keep your pulse on the community and the region, and you do things and you're true to them. I mean, I've always been true to my constituencies and true to myself. I mean, I've never veered off what I want to do on job creation, economic development, and I think people of both parties agree with that. I mean, there's nothing wrong with creating jobs, so I think that's part of it. Not necessarily I was in love with just doing one thing with one party. I mean, I've had a number of people all across the political spectrum support me.
Now, looking at job creation, what you've accomplished in the years that you've been there, you mentioned repealing some things that were burdensome. Are there anything that really stands out in your mind that was one of the key accomplishments to say this is really going to make a difference in bringing jobs in or helping the jobs we have?
Well, there was a whole raft of things, the bureaucracy, getting regulation out of the way, and I've worked with a number of governors, Democrats, Republican, traveled with them around the world, recruiting business. Is there any one thing? No, getting our economic development plan that is competitive, and that's a whole raft of different ideas. Matter of fact, what is going on now with the new governor, Mike Parsons, I served with him in the House and Senate, this trained workforce. I mean, the trained workforce concept started when we were in the House, and modeling after Georgia's Quick Start program, which takes kids from junior high and tries to figure out a career path for them at some level, and get them in the workforce with a good job, good training. And we're finally going to, after 14 years, going to model ourselves after the South, of Georgia particularly. They have the best program. And Governors Greitens and Parsons are continuing the model with their economic development director, and that should be online in another 6 to 7 months, which that is going to put Missouri apart from anybody else, because I think we're going to do it one step further than Georgia and Alabama. So it's a whole raft thing. Get the bureaucracy, get Department of Natural Resources to walk in and say, is there something we can do on permitting? Is there something we can do on workforce training with the 2-year and 4-year universities? Is there something to do with MoDOT on transportation, getting people to and from work? So all that is going to be part of what's going to happen in the next few months, and that's going to set Missouri apart again. And I think it's really going to be a great time, and if I was another state, I'd worry about it, because we're coming to play.
So it sounds like you're getting all the players on the team as far as the different areas of government.
All the pieces are coming together finally. We've got enough people convinced that this job training is what we need to do, and now it's the norm. Everybody wants to be part of it, wants to take credit for it. Good enough. I don't care. Let's just get it done, and that's going to start happening in the next 4 to 5 months.
And you mentioned those states in the South that have had successful programs where they bring in some major corporations building cars. And
BMW, Boeing. I mean, when I was with Matt Blunt, I mean, we tried to recruit a truck company, and I went to Texas, and we tried to recruit Kia. They went to Alabama and Georgia, and we did land Ford in Kansas City, right. And that took us in a special session. But there's a lot more out there, a lot more from Missouri. We got Boeing coming back to St. Louis, which has a lot of vendors in southwest Missouri. Liggett and Platt and some others. And I think there's going to be a lot of new, exciting things coming from Missouri.
So that will help those companies as they're looking at the nation as a whole to say, well, Missouri is doing this plus this to bring us in.
Well, the goal is, when I was at a commercial jet manufacturer in Savannah, Georgia, a couple years ago, I mean, I walked in, they had 500 or 600 young people working, and what they did, they went to the state and they said, we need this many people trained like this. Mm-hmm. And that's what the state did. They gave them this many people trained exactly on the same machinery. So the day after graduating, they walked in and started building airplanes and knew exactly how to work and knew the machinery. That's part of what we're modeling after.
So that's going to affect education, the K through 12, higher education,
all the way from junior high all the way up. Yeah.
Great. So that's something that will continue.
Middle school, whatever they call it.
Yeah,
now.
Starting them off early and looking at that. So looking at that accomplishments in the state of Missouri, you've also dealt with, as you said, different governors over the years, working with Republican, Democrat, as far as communicating with them was in a position of leadership. You've had that role as well, that you have to, I guess, represent your branch, legislative branch, and talking to the other side.
Yes, I mean, I'm very protective of what in the House and Senate. I mean, I'm protective of legislative overreach. I mean, if you don't watch the judicial branch, the courts, right, and the executive branch, the governor and his people will push you out in the legislative branch and try to get the legislation done without you. And I never allowed that. I mean, I got in some heated battles with Democrat and Republican governors. I'm very protective about our job, and that's what we do, is make sure we do the legislation, initiate it, have significant debate, and pass it if it has merit. And passing it through both sides of the building is supposed to be hard. It's not supposed to be easy. You're not supposed to pass a lot of legislation. So I'm very protective of our part of governance, and always have been.
So making sure those three separate bodies, legislative, executive, and judicial, are separate. Right?
To your words, there's separate and separate but equal, and I protect that.
Great. Well, I know you've also been able to be involved throughout the years with politics as far as locally, statewide, nationally. I think you were involved when we've had congressional campaigns, Senate campaigns come in. So from that side of working with people on the political side, it's kind of behind the scenes. People may not realize that part of your career. You've been very involved with helping with that.
And several congressmen served with me in the House, and I helped them get elected when they were in the House of Representatives in Missouri. Blaine Lukemeyer from Middle. He's assistant chairman of Commerce. I've always had a willingness to help people ascend the heights. Roy Blunt, I mean, I remember him when he was county clerk in Greene County. I helped him a lot when he was in the House and the Senate. So I mean, it takes a team. So I'm always ready to help people with good character and quality individuals, and all of them that I've helped been quality individuals.
That was my next question, is what do you see in a person when they say, I'd like to go on to another position? What qualities are you looking for them that you say they can be a good leader or they could fit this type of higher position?
Well, you look at their past, and just that's everyone that I've helped has had a past. I mean, all the ones that have been in government or been in the Missouri House or the Missouri Senate or county government for 6, 8, 10 years. So you can judge them on their merits, what they did, and what they said. I mean, very seldom do I just pick somebody that walks in out of the blue and I want to run for this. Very seldom do I jump on board of that. I take a year or two to check them out.
Right, get to know people and what they can accomplish and so forth. So working with people. Let's go back to what you said earlier as far as having a local office. That part of constituent service. People may not realize it, but when they have a question, they have someone in Joplin they can call and say, what do I do about this situation? Yeah,
Gwen has been with me for, she's 18, 20 years. How long I've been? 16 years. And then she was with Chuck 20 years before that. And then I had a group of staff, in Jeff City. Always, when you're in leadership, you get a few extra people that you share with the other members, but they're hired by me. So the first thing we always did is make sure that if somebody back home, which when I was in the House, I mean it was the Joplin area, Joplin, a little bit of Newton County, and a little bit out over in Webb City and Carl. That was our first goal, my first charge to Gwen, which she knew already, or I guess her first charge to me was, we need to take care of people at home, and that's what she did, and I said, you're absolutely right. Then as I moved on and got additional staff, I mean, I still get calls now, thinking I'm the Speaker of the House from around the country. I had somebody call from Florida that had a relative here in Missouri that had a kid in Florida that couldn't get some Medicare. So we ended up calling a friend of mine, who's a state senator in Florida, and got it taken care of. I mean, the relationships that I've made over the years, and I really don't say, well, I never say, well, I'm not Speaker anymore, I can't help you. We just go ahead and take care of the problem. And Billy Long's office and I have a real good relationship. Gwen handles tours of the White House and VA benefits for Billy if he gets busy. And actually, Gwen's going to go work for Billy when she leaves me in January. So that's one of Billy's smarter moves, is that he's going to take Gwen, which everybody in this region knows her and trusts her and loves her. And then Roy Blunt, I've been to D.C. a couple times with him, been to inauguration with him. So I guess, again, been pretty lucky.
Pretty behind-the-scenes people. And, of course, family-wise, you have a wife who's been supporting you, and family that, we think of people, we see people in elected office, but don't realize they have a family, too, that's supporting them as they're doing this.
Well, Patty and I were married when I was mayor of Joplin, so she inherited all this, and she's been pretty good about it over the years. I mean, she and I have traveled all over the whole world together with different governors, as I said, representing the legislative body, but also promoting business and agriculture in the state of Missouri. And so having politics without politics, going to be new to her. So I owe her some time. She's been very good and never complained once, and she's walked the neighborhoods, and my daughter and son, I mean, they've all helped and done those things that families do, but it's time I've spoiled them a little bit now.
Yeah. And the people don't realize how much time you do spend. They see the legislative sessions only in the spring, but you have been in Jefferson City on a regular basis for many years.
Yeah, when I go to Jeff City, I mean, when I was, I'm winding down now, and I'm still down there a lot, but when I'm in Jeff City, I'm there at 6 o'clock in the morning. I mean, usually nobody's there, and I don't leave till 8 or 9 or 10 o'clock at night. That's every day. And then when I'm at the office 3 times a week with Gwen, and I'll tell you, nobody puts in the time that I put in. But there's a certain group of members that like to meet early.
So I
get there early. And about the problems they have in their legislation or problems with something. And then there's a certain group of people that like to meet late. So I work through both of them. But I will tell you, my office is open a lot. And we're there in case something. And I hate surprises. And usually, if there's going to be, when we go in at 10 o'clock in the morning, I usually know about 9 o'clock there's going to be a surprise. And if I know earlier than that, I got time to fix it, time to talk to some people and adjust legislation, adjust language. Could be a court challenge, could be any number of things. So
putting a long day and a lot of energy to do that.
I'm very methodical about planning for the worst, but I accept the best. I'm ready for the best.
And of course, the question the viewers might be wondering is, what comes next? Everybody, when it comes time, whether someone's retiring here at the university, I interview them, or I'm asking, in your position, future plans. What are you looking at down the road?
Well, not anything particularly. The governor and I have talked a little bit in broad brushstrokes about possibly helping him on the Capitol Commission, finishing restoring the inside of that, and then finishing up the outside. He may need some help. We're going to talk in another couple of days about the Bicentennial Commission.
Right.
He may want me to help chair that, or vice chair, to get that ready in 2 years. I've raised a lot of money for the Capitol and preserving that. I mean, it's a grand building. If anyone's never been there, they're missing probably the grandest building in the country. It's a lot of artwork, and it's just unbelievable, this building. And then I'm still a little involved in economic development statewide. So it depends on how I'm asked and stuff, but I do what I can to
So there's
help.
some possibilities in the future.
Yeah, well, I'm not finished yet. I still have December. I still got the election. I still got to get members elected and make sure that they're on target and their message is still correct. So I still got a job.
You still got some work to do between now and the time you actually shut that door. Right.
Yeah.
Well, any final words of advice you would give to somebody who is maybe back where you were starting out in politics years ago? What would you say to somebody thinking, I'd like to, I'm interested in serving and helping out?
Yeah. Well, there's a trite, you get involved in this. And sure, if you're interested, you're helping people. But when you get to that point and people start talking to you, you got to be true to yourself. I never believed I was anything other than just a regular guy from Joplin, Missouri, trying to create jobs. Now, members came to me and said, you need to run for this leadership office. We have the votes for you. I've never lost a leadership race. Even in the Senate, I wasn't going to run for majority leader in the Senate. A guy had left, and I just don't care about doing it. Let someone else do it. And I had numbers walk in. Well, you have to run. We've already got the votes for you. That's the kind of the luck and the confidence that members have given me. But I've always told the truth, and sometimes I'm a little outspoken, as you probably read the press. But I just don't believe that. I believe that people ought to know exactly what you think, and maybe I make some mistakes, but I worked as hard as I could and did the best I could, and I've always been true to myself. I understand that who I was, and I'm not that great. It's just I've really worked hard and tried to put this area foremost, and we've had some success, I think.
Great. Well, Senator Richard, I'd like to thank you very much for visiting with us. And I know we're recording this before you're actually finished serving your official term, but I appreciate all the time over the years when you have taken time to come visit with us.
Yeah, we started back when I was on the zoning commission. That's been a long time, 30 years, yeah.
So following your career. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Judy.
Thank you. And I'd like to thank you, the viewers, for joining us this week on Newsmakers. I'm Judy Stiles. Hope you can join me again next week at the same time on the station. We'll see you then.